absolutely ridiculous. What I'm hoping to do by this podcast is to have a civilized conversation where we can all learn and grow from it. And to remain, if we're going to be able to think about these issues in a healthy, constructive way, we have to look at the issues critically. We have to be fair to both sides. If you might not identify as a feminist, maybe you identify as MGTOW, which is about as far from female. It's a complete abandonment of like the disillusionment and the detachment from female relations. Period. If you're a man, you could be a member of MGTOW, in which you almost perceive you it's almost like a vow of chastity. MGTOW is another interesting subject to kind of have another podcast on. But regardless of what side you fall on, I would encourage everybody to have a civilized conversation and to keep an open mind during this conversation. Take everything with a grain of salt. Do your own research and come back and share it. And let's talk about these issues critically. And there's one thing I have something that I want to share. This was taken this is a quote I have from a man named Leon Whistler, who on October the 7th, I think it was either the 7th or the 8th, in 2014, in an interview with Stephen Colbert on the Colbert Report. This was my favorite Colbert Report of all time. He had this really good I don't know what he was. He might have been like a social commentator. I don't know exactly what his profession was. This guy was very intelligent. He had a book out and stuff like that. And this is a quote from him during that. He said, "In a democratic society and an open society, it places an extraordinary intellectual responsibility on ordinary men and women because we are governed by what we think. We are governed by our opinions. So the content of our opinions and the quality of our opinions and the quality of the formation of our opinions basically determines the character of our society." And what that means is in an open democratic society, a thoughtless citizen of democracy is a delinquent citizen. So a lot of you guys may say, "I just want to play games. I don't want to see this. This is stupid. What does this have to do with me? It has nothing to do with me." These issues are so important to us because they dictate the rules and the manner in which we live in, the rules and the laws that we govern ourselves by, and how we act, how we behave, and how we think, and how we govern ourselves. Not just each other as a society, but ourselves. That's why it's really important to get involved in these discussions, and why it's really, really important to look at both sides of the issue and to try and to reach a middle ground and to try and say, you know what, I may disagree with what you're saying, but I really respect your right to say it. And I also respect the fact that you have an informed opinion. You've clearly done some research, and you are trying to present that in a constructive manner so that we can have an open dialogue and a manner of discussion that we can talk. Unfortunately, many gamers seem to think that, like Miss Petit, there are social justice warriors is simply by calling out like Miss Petite. I don't know what Miss Petite is. Yeah, that Sentinel. That's a very real concern. A lot of people feel that simply by calling out, if you call something out, and we're gonna talk about that. We're actually gonna talk about that issue. We're gonna talk about victim. It's about like victim blaming when you place like a person who has been victimized by a legitimate case of harassment, assault, or whatever you have you, bullying, whatever have you. We're going to talk about that issue. We're going to talk about how that's a very good argument to bring up. A lot of people, and I wouldn't just say, don't just say gamers, people in general, and it's not just men and it's not just women. The podcast is not becoming, I wanted to keep it really structured, but it's becoming really open, and we're bouncing ideas, so I'm just going to go with the flow now. What you see a lot of times is you will see in instances of sexual assault, like let's say on college campuses, you will see that a reason why a lot of times perpetrators of sexual assault, they're not always punished because of the fact that police the police or other individuals, authority figures that are responsible for maintaining campus security or harmony within a campus, and are supposed to serve in an administrative or security function and facilitate the safety and education of these students. They kind of drop the ball a lot of times. Let's just talk about on college campuses for an example. A lot of times women or maybe even men are victims of assault, and people will say, let's just say women, because it's a much easier to talk about a woman being assaulted, because of the fact that there seems to be, as I've said in the popular narration is that women are made victims much more easily because men are perpetrating misogyny on them. If a woman walks down the street in a short skirt or a revealing dress, she's viewed as a slut or a whore, a streetwalker, whatever have you, whatever you want to call her, and she'll be catcalled. And the justification for these actions are saying, you asked for it, you were wearing revealing clothing, you were asking me to stare at your breasts, you were asking me to look up your skirt, you were asking me to walk by, you were asking me to call you by. I by no means is any female asking to be harassed by anyone of any sex, any race, or any gender, I'm sure. And you're very right. There are many times when a lot of people will target an individual purely based on their looks, and will victimize them. They will perpetrate harassment or violence against them, or whatever you want to call it. And then the person who has been the harassee, the person who has received this bullying or whatever you want to call it, then goes to the proper authorities. And what happens to them? They're made to feel guilty. Again, they're victimized again. So it's victim blaming. There is a pattern of victim blaming in some circumstances. Some circumstances, there have been women that like, as I've said, the argument is like, oh, well, you were wearing a miniskirt. You deserved to be called that. You can't wear revealing clothing at school because of the fact that you're asking for boys to sexually attack you. And it's now this girl's fault for wearing a shirt, a V-neck shirt that might come down a little bit and show some cleavage. And she is asking to be looked at as a sexual object because of the fact that she was wearing this V-neck shirt that showed some cleavage. Does it happen? I have looked at cleavage before. I have looked at a woman's butt before. I have looked at a female and objectified her. I am guilty of that. I am a man. I'm a straight man. I like females. I find them very attractive. And we're going to talk about some of those, why that happens, though. We're going to talk about why people feel the need to do that and why that happens. I think, all things considered, I think everybody has some kind of responsibility to... everybody has some form of responsibility in all these issues. So victim blaming does happen a lot of times, and it is perpetrated towards women a lot of these times. Okay, so covering kind of that issue, I think we kind of covered that issue. So we talked about women in refrigerators. We kind of talked about how victiming, how they're made to feel guilty by even though they are the victims. So I want to share with you another article now that I read that I found that to be kind of insightful. So while I was looking, I found this article on where are you? This one right here. So it's 5 ways the gaming industry, this is specifically talking towards gaming, the 5 ways the gaming industry is more sexist than you think. And this kind of goes into, this is going to tie into what you were saying, Sentinel, about victim blaming. So we talked about why are women blamed as victims, or why sometimes they don't come out and talk about these issues, or why they remain silent, and why that might be sexist. A lot of this article alleges that, let me bring it up here for you guys. This article alleges that women, and if you would like the link, let me post it here to here, and you guys can take a look at it. Here we go. So, right here, if you talk about these issues at all, that's all you're ever known for. This is kind of like victim blaming. These women in these industries might bring up a topic. They might bring up the fact that, hey, that was very misogynistic what you did. That was very sexist what you did. You just sexually harassed me and you didn't even know you did it. I don't appreciate that. If you bring that up, you are then now known for that. As Zoe Quinn has become known for being a professional victim, or Anita Sarkeesian has been known for becoming a professional victim. And I say this because these are allegations. They, whether they've been substantiated or not, that is based purely on opinion, and I don't think it can be factually verified. I think it's so much time has passed, it's really impossible to tell. And the only two people that will know all of that information are the people who were there involved in the drama at the moment. And unfortunately, even some of those people have misperceptions because they are so skewed by what they believe. They are unwilling to acknowledge the fact that maybe they played a role in something. And that goes on both sides of the field. So a lot of women feel like they cannot bring up the fact that sexism exists in their field, or they are victims of a sexist attack or whatever have you, like we said, the bullying or the harassment or whatever. They can't bring that up because then they are painted as a target, and that's what they're known for. Okay, well, you're a victim. You're a victim. You're a victim. That's all you know for. That's all you want to cry. You want to cry, Wolf? Oh, get over it. Get over it. Blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of women don't feel welcome in these fields because of the fact that when they point these things out, even if they want to stay in the field, men don't care. And they tell them to get over it. And they're just like, yeah, whatever, man. Whatever. You should just accept it. Another thing right here this article addresses is the harassment involved in the actual industry. This article specifically shares a couple of forms of harassment. Now, when you read this article, if you look at it and you see the instances that they talk about, the examples they're giving, that they're saying why this harassment exists, or these are examples of harassment that I experienced. This is why it's wrong. This is why there's misogyny in the field. This is why there's sexism in the field. This is why women don't go into this field because of these things. Some of those examples, again, are interpretations of perception. I could look at them and say, like, I don't necessarily think that might be could be construed as sexist. There might be examples of this happening towards men as well, and I can think of some. That's not always the case. So you might be able to say that. Again, that does not excuse the fact that this does happen in the industry. So that there are these claims of harassment. There are these claims that someone has, is being victimized. That women are being victimized in a very real way, and they talk about victim blaming in this article. I see that as kind of, let me just quote this. I see this as kind of victim blaming. It's not other people's fault for being terrible human beings. It's your fault for not being able to deal with it. There's something wrong with you, not them. It's a really sad attitude for people to have to put up with, but it's quite common, I think, in a woman. The industry knows it whether they admit it or not. So oftentimes, even if an inappropriate comment is made towards a woman, and if she were to call it out, if she were to say, that's not appropriate, I don't like that, I demand an apology, the person, you should just get over it, man. You should just get over it. That's not always the case. Is it treated sincere? Is it treated with sincerity? Is the gravity of the offense actually dealt with? I don't know. And this article kind of talks about some of those ways that women are harassed and they don't feel like they are welcome in, let's say, the video game. For the tenses of this article, they don't feel welcome in this field because of the fact that even if they're victims of this sexist aggression, and then they say something about it, then they are then blamed for saying something, and they don't feel like they can make any headway. So even if you do something about it, you're in trouble. They also talk about how the stereotypes, and we kind of talked about how gender roles play a role into this. A lot of this article alleges that women are not allowed, this is my perception of it, women are not allowed into the field because they're not as smart as men, or they don't know as much about science and mathematics as men. and they're trying to say that apparently an example